Reads, and I'm here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting July the 24th, 2017. This week I wanted to work with playing cards, so the deck that's going to be assisting me for this week's reading is the Caravan of the Seers Fortune Teller playing cards. They are by Jennifer Cast of For the Seekers. So I have the deck on hand, and I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into this week's reading. And I'm shuffling the cards. And as I do every week for these weekly general readings, I'm setting the intention with the question, what do we need to know for the week ahead? I'm feeling one more time will be good. There we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut the cards. Fan them out. And when I work with playing cards, I pick 3 cards, so I'm looking at the fan for 3 cards to get my attention. Now that I have the cards selected, I'm picking up the remainder of the deck and putting it aside. And so when I work with playing cards, I read the cards from left to right. So starting with the card on the far left, we have, starting off the reading, we have the 5 of Clubs. So for me, when I work with playing cards, I tend to work with the suit emblem first. So clubs for me can represent work or business. So there may be a work or business related issue that we're being asked to focus on. If you happen not to be employed, then the work implied could be, something that requires some sort of effort on your part. I tend to look at work that way. Other aspects of the suit of clubs for me can represent progress, so there could be some progression being made, and that would make sense if we go with the idea of work being effort, so there could be some sort of progression with that. And the final thing, when I think of clubs, I tend to think of social interaction or activity. So that would make sense if we shift from the suit emblem to the number. So 5 for me can represent being active and activity, so that would make sense if we go with the social activity part of that. But it could also be activity put into either a working situation or a business situation. 5 is also the number of change, so I tend to think of change being the first thing here. So for some of us, we may be actively working on changing a situation. That could be whether it's actually work-related or business-related specifically, or if it's just something in what I term as the business of life. But anyway, this is the energy of putting some sort of change or focusing on change for the week, this week. What are the things that we could work on that's going to help produce some element of change? Change being the operative word, but change with the idea of something progressing, something advancing, something moving forward. I'm tending to see that. So for some of us, it could be a lot of, social activity. And then with that, the number 5 could be about what would we need to free up? Because I tend to look at 5 as freedom too. What would we need to free up in order for that social activity to take place? So it could be if you're faced with the idea of having a lot on your plate, what could you free up that would give you a greater sense of moving forward in that direction? So I'm seeing that. So for some of us, it may be there's a lot going on and we need to free ourselves up from certain things. That could be work related, that could be business related, that could be, things having to do with social activity. Maybe we have a lot of social activity and we kind of need to free ourselves up from some of those obligations. And what work are we willing to do on our part so that becomes possible? So taking a step back and asking, what else do I need to say about that? Oh, here's the other thing. For me, the number 5 can represent the body. If you go with the idea, I tend to look at it this way. The human body has a head, right? And then 2 arms and 2 legs, right? So that would form a body. So this could represent, things in the physical, things in the material, things of that nature. So it could be, one of the things for some people could be, the idea of working out. I tend to if we go with the idea that clubs can represent work, and then 5 represents physical activity, then it could be somebody needs to kind of work out or work something out. But I'm going with the physical aspect. It could be a workout routine. physical activity, things of that nature. How can you incorporate that into your everyday schedule or your everyday way of living? So for some people, it may be the idea of becoming more physically active, and how can you work on that? So again, summing up, this card could represent changes going on either in work or business, changes taking place with our social activities, our social interactions with others. It could be, for some of us, we may need to work on freeing ourselves up from certain activities, or freeing ourselves up so we can engage in certain activities. So it could go one way or the other. And then the other message here could be, the idea here that somebody may actually need to be engaging in more physical activity, and that could be working out. Part of the social interaction could be somebody engaged with a group of people. I'm seeing like sporting events or sporting competitions or something of that nature, and doing something in regards to that. The other thing I'm seeing is that somebody could be working on the idea of dealing with competition in the work or business arena. And if that's the case, then the 5 being a number of freedom could be like, instead of, kind of maybe going along with the crowd, or, just being one of the pack, what is it about your work or your business that makes you distinct? Because I'm seeing like the idea of freedom is like breaking free from the pack. And so in business, we call that your unique selling proposition. So it could be like somebody, if they're, in business, could be really putting some energy, some work or effort into becoming more clear on what their unique selling proposition is. What is their unique distinction, right? So I'm seeing that with the 5 of clubs. Now that's how I read the first card. The middle card will give us more of an influence that can inform us more about the first card. So moving on to the next card. We have the 9 of hearts. So the 9 of hearts in cartomancy is known as the wish card. So it could be saying to, as a result of the work being put into a situation, it helps a wish or a dream come true. Because the 9 here is a number, when it's attached to a positive card like this, the 9 is a number of something being gained or something being attained, right? So there's that. And I'm looking at the image. There's a silhouette on the card with a lady with her arms stretched out like this. So in a way, like she's celebrating something. So it could be like getting a hope or a wish coming true, and as a result, we get to celebrate that. So now that makes sense if we go with the idea that the suit of clubs from the card before represents progress being made. So it's about celebrating some progress. We've attained something as a result of the work and energy we put into it, and now we get to be in a space where we get to celebrate. Then now hearts is the suit that can represent emotions, it can represent feelings, it could represent relationships, and that would make sense going with the social activity, the social interaction part of that. So it could be like engaging with people who have helped play a part in this idea of having something to celebrate. It could be just also too with the feelings and emotions slant of the hearts. Could be saying too, just like we attain maybe not a tangible physical reward, but it just makes us feel better. I'm thinking of Abraham, the teachers of the law of attraction, and he talked about better feeling thoughts, right? So I'm seeing that expression in my head, but it's just about like something being gained or attained that just makes us feel better. We feel a greater sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, things of that nature, and that's in the more an emotional quality. Hearts can represent like inner processes, inner work, things of that nature, whereas the club can represent, since it represents work, business, and social stuff, that's more of an outer process. So we have a blend of the two. So something that we do in the outer can make a shift on how we experience something internally, like an emotional shift, right? So I talked about the feelings, the emotions, I talked about the relationship aspect of hearts. The one other aspect of the suit for me can represent healing. So that would make sense for the person or persons who may have to take a look at their level of physical activity and working on changing that. They may actually feel better as a result of making those physical changes. So seeing all of that with the 9 of hearts. But the 9 of hearts just represents being in a space where something is gained or attained, right? So now we move on to the last card. And we have here I had a feeling one of these was going to show up. Okay, so this is the Vardo card. So Vardo in this deck is a joker card because there's two of them. There's one that's called the approaching Vardo, and then there's one that's called the departing Vardo. So what I do is I tend to look at it in the line, and what it is, it's facing the Nine of Hearts. So it says we are about to approach, or we're approaching on this sense of having a hope, wish fulfilled or granted, right? So we're approaching that. So it could be, I'm looking at the literal image, and so the Vardo can represent like a vehicle because it's on wheels, right? So it could be, for some of us, it goes back to, with clubs being on the other side of the line, it could be, again, about our career, you know, our vehicle, the thing that acquires, you know, that we use to kind of move through life, you know, our career situation. It could also be, again, a pun for our physical body. You know, our body is the vehicle through which we move through this physical world, right? So that could serve twofold. It could go back to the whole work business aspect for some people, but this card can also speak again to the whole physical well-being aspect that we've also talked about with our physical body. I'm looking at the image and I'm seeing a ladder. So for some of us, it could be making that advancement and progress. Remember, the first card being from the suit of clubs is also about progression being made. Well, here we may be shown or given the steps. If we go with the ladder being like you have to take it step by step in order to make that advancement, in order to make that progression. It could be part of the, maybe the hope or the wish being fulfilled, since the Vardo card is facing the Nine of Hearts in the line because it's the closest card. Next to it could be that sense of gaining, you know, clarity about the next step going forward. You know, so there could be that somebody gets an aha moment, you know, a revelation, you know, a bright idea, that kind of thing, an epiphany, you know, that kind of sets the stage for them to take the next step up. You know, I'm looking at the card too. So there are a couple other symbols on the card. So there's a crescent moon. So the moon could be a symbol of, like, that could be an intuitive prompt, and that would make sense with hearts being about emotions and feelings, because our intuition is directly connected to our emotional state. You know, we call it feelings, you know, vibes, things of that nature, but that's all about feelings. So, you know, we may get an intuitive prompt. It may be more of something about a feeling kind of sensation, you know, going with that. But I tend to look at the moon as a symbol that represents being led or guided by our intuition. And then the other symbol here that I'm seeing is a dollar sign. So the dollar sign can represent money, but it could also represent currency and value. So again, going back to the whole work or business thing, for that person who may be feeling like they are just one of a number of people who do a similar thing, you know, maybe the value distinction with the dollar sign is about, again, looking at what makes you distinct. What is your unique selling proposition, so you can kind of break away from the pack, and that might be the thing that helps change or shift your earning potential. Right? And I'm seeing with that, now that I talked about earning potential, the Nine of Hearts being the next card, or the closest card to this card, could suggest like somebody's hope or wish being fulfilled may actually have to do with money and finances. So I'm seeing that. The last thing I want to say about the Vardo card is, because it's a Joker card, the Joker card, when it shows up, can represent, you know, either the start or the beginning of a new phase or chapter. But the Joker is also a wild card, so it could represent something unexpectedly happening that could play a part in our wish being fulfilled or a hope being granted, that kind of energy. So summing up, again, the Five of Clubs for me can represent there may be some energy being put into work or business, or working on something with the idea of making some progress. There's that. With some people, again, it could be, you know, with work or business, it could be about, like, what are you willing to do to make yourself stand out from the crowd, right? If you're looking at your business and work from a more of a competitive kind of thing, right, there's that. For some people, it could actually be like you're putting some energy into looking at your physical well-being, and with that, you may want to establish some sort of exercise routine or some sort of workout regimen. I'm seeing that. The Nine of Hearts being the middle card could say, as a result of whatever it is that we are working on, or whatever it is that we're putting effort into, we see a hope or a wish being fulfilled or granted. And with that, it brings a greater sense of emotional satisfaction, right? There's that. And then moving on to the last card, the Vardo card. The Vardo card can represent an unexpected element being thrown in that's going to lead to this sense of whatever our hope is, whatever our wish is, that sense of fulfillment and satisfaction. It may play a huge part in that. Again, for some people, it could be looking at the vehicle on Vardo. It could be, again, your actual work, and moving that along. It could be like you are getting clarity about the next step that you would need to have that would kind of get you making progress or advancement. And again, this card could also be about people who are actually taking a look at their physical well-being, taking a look at their exercise routine, working out, and they're seeing some progress being made with that. Now, another thing we can do is we can take the number cards and we could take another look at those. So we have 5 and we have 9. If we add them together, we get 14. And then 14 reduces to 5 if you add the 1 and the 4 again. So again, as a theme, it brings us all back to, again, this idea of change. So it could be like, what changes are we willing to make in our lives this week? And life could be just life overall. It could be about work. It could be about business. It could be about your physical well-being. But what changes are you willing to make? And then as a result of making those changes and taking action on those changes, that's the work, doing the work, we get to see some progress being made. So on that note, I will wrap up and end this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm Jameson Mitchell, and as I wrap up, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. Take care.